What's up, Planeswalkers? Andrew here, bringing you a big stompy, or should I say, big splashy, deck list. This is a Simic partner deck between Kodama of the East Tree and Brynlin, the Moonkraken. I originally brewed this because I just had to build a deck helmed by the Moonkraken, and Kodama seemed like a good partner, and boy howdy has this deck surprised me. So, to go over your commanders here, Kodama of the East Tree is a 6/6 with reach for 4 green, and it says whenever a permanent enters your field, if Kodama didn't put it there, you can play a permanent from your hand with equal or lesser mana value for free. You can make high mana value spells even better, and it can even give us extra land drops. Brynlin, the Moonkraken, is a 6/8 for 6 blue that bounces a permanent whenever it enters, or whenever you cast a mana value 6 or higher spell. Between those two, you can either play Kodama first to make Brynlin give you an extra 8 mana value or lower permanent when you cast it, or you can cast Brynlin first to give Kodama a bounce effect on entry. Naturally, this deck runs a ton of high mana value spells, particularly permanents, in order to take advantage of both of your commanders. So I did the only logical thing and brewed this as a Sea Monsters deck. First we have AC, Tyrant of Gyre Strait. He lets you play an extra land each turn and draws you a card whenever you play a land. Ancient Greed Warden has reach, lets you play lands from your grave, and doubles any ETB triggers caused by lands. This deck runs just enough landfall type effects for this to be worth it in my eyes, especially since Kodama can let you crap out lands for no good reason. Deep Sea Kraken is an unblockable 6/6 for a whopping 10 mana, or you can suspend it for 3 mana, putting 9 time counters on it that either get removed on your upkeeps like normal, or they can be removed whenever an opponent casts a spell. Elder Deep Fiend is a 5/6 with flash that can emerge by sacking a creature, and on cast taps up to 4 target permanents. Icebreaker Kraken costs 12 mana, reduced by the number of snow lands you control. When it enters, artifacts and creatures target opponent controls don't untap on the next untap step, and you can bounce 3 of your snow lands to bounce Icebreaker. Koma, Cosmos Serpent, is a backbreaker and a half for your opponents, and a serious contender for the deck's commander. He's uncounterable, makes a 3/3 Serpent on everyone's upkeep, and you can sack another Serpent to either shut down a permanent for a turn, or give Kodama indestructible for a turn. In my experience, I prefer having access to Kodama in the command zone, but Koma is absolutely a valid choice as well. Nezahal cannot be countered and removes your hand limit, drawing you a card whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, and you can discard 3 cards to blink him. Scourge of Fleets bounces your opponent's creatures with toughness less than your number of islands on entry. Serpent of Yawning Depths makes Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents you control unblockable. Shipbreaker Kraken can be made monstrous for 8 mana, and when it is, it taps down up to 4 target creatures that don't untap for as long as you control Shipbreaker Kraken. Simic Sky Swallower has Flying, Trample, and Shroud. Slyn Voda can be kicked to bounce all non-sea monster creatures to their owner's hands. Spined Megalodon has Hexproof and scries you 1 on attack. Trench Behemoth can bounce one of your lands to untap and become Hexproof for the turn, and whenever a land enters, it forces an opponent's creature to attack on the next turn. Dromocratus has Hexproof unless it's involved in combat, and it can't be blocked unless the player it's attacking blocks it with all of their creatures. Verdant Sun's Avatar gains you life whenever it or another creature you control enters, equal to that creature's toughness. Simic Life Gain. We have some other aggressive spells to go over. I just wanted to get the 6 mana value and higher creatures done first because they all trigger Brynlin. Avric Smithies enters tapped with 5 slumber counters. As long as it has a slumber counter, it's a land and not a creature, and you can remove a counter whenever you cast a spell. It also taps for Simic. Murkfiend Liege gives your green creatures +1/+1, your blue creatures +1/+1, and untaps all your green and blue creatures on each other player's untap step. Ominous Seas gets a Foreshadow counter whenever you draw a card, and you can remove 8 counters to make an 8/8 Kraken. Scoot Swarm makes a 1/1 insect when a land enters your field, unless you control at least 6 lands, in which case it copies itself instead. Shark Typhoon makes a flying shark whenever you cast a non-creature spell equal to that spell's mana value, and you can cycle it, which also makes a flying shark. Shark to Crab has Adapt, and whenever it gets a +1/+1 counter, it taps down a creature. Spitting Image copies any creature on the field, and has Retrace. Stump Squall Hydra is an X cost that lets you distribute X +1/+1 counters on it, and or your commanders. Zendikar's Royal makes a 2/2 elemental on landfall. For support, we have some fun spells such as Altered Ego, which copies a creature and you can pay X in its mana cost to give it that many extra +1/+1 counters. Also, can we, as a community, agree to call them muscle counters? It cuts them down from +1/+1's 4 syllables to 2 syllables, and it gets the point across. Muscles make you hit harder and also make you more durable. Anyways, Ashaya, Soul of the Wild, gives all your non-token creatures the Forest type, letting them trigger landfall as well as tap for a green. Crucible of Worlds lets you play lands from your grave. Deep Glow Skate lets you choose any number of permanents and double all the counters on those permanents. Gush can be paid for either with its mana cost or by bouncing 2 of your islands, and it draws you 2 cards. Emoti, Celebrant of Bounty, has Cascade and gives your mana value 6 or higher spells Cascade. Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner, draws you a card whenever a creature with at least 4 power enters your field, and it can be minused to untap a permanent. Muldrifter draws you 2 on entry, and you can convoke it for 2 less mana to have it enter, draw you 2, and then die immediately after. Nissa, Steward of Elements, is an X-cost planeswalker who enters with X loyalty. Her +2 scries, her 0 has you look at the top card of your deck and put it onto the field if it's a land or creature whose mana value is less than Nissa's loyalty, and her -6 untaps 2 of your lands, turning them into flying, hasty 5/5 elementals for a turn. Panharmonicon doubles up your ETBs, making Kodama and Brynlin even more redonkulous than they already are. Remanap Excavator lets you play lands from your grave. Retreat to Kazandu lets you either gain 2 life or put a muscle counter on a creature as a landfall trigger. Simic Ascendancy can also put muscle counters on a creature, and whenever a muscle counter goes on one of your creatures, Simic Ascendancy gets a growth counter, and having 20 or more of those on your upkeep wins you the game. Tatiova, Benthic Druid, gains you a life and draws you a card on landfall. But we need to be able to defend ourselves, right? Because big stompy sea monsters aren't protection enough, apparently. They're actually not. Beast Within destroys a creature and replaces it with a 3/3 beast. Charix, the Raging Isle, is a big stupid 0/17 idiot that just blocks ground attacks all day long. Counterspell. That's the card. Crush of Tentacles bounces all non-land permanents, and if you cast another spell before it this turn, you can pay its surge cost instead, which makes you an 8/8 octopus after the mass bounce. Heroic Intervention gives your board hexproof and indestructible for the turn. Peel from Reality bounces one of your creatures and an opponent's creature. This can temporarily deal with their threat while simultaneously reloading your hand with another big beastie to drop. Simic Charm can either give a creature +3/+3 for the turn, give your board hexproof, or bounce a creature. King of the Ice is an 0/4 defender with 4 ice counters on it. You remove 1 whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, and when it loses all of them, it transforms into a 7/8 that bounces all non-horror creatures. It's real embarrassing to transform this when you don't want it to bounce everything, so you end up Beast Withining your own thing in the ice. Yeah. Lastly, we have Whelming Wave, which bounces all non-sea monster creatures. Now, how will you fuel all your huge spells? Whatever will you do in blue and green to be able to cast big sea monsters on curve? You stop whining, that's what. You're in one of the strongest color combos in the game. Anyways, when it comes to ramp, you've got Armillary Sphere, which can be sacked to search for up to 2 basic lands to add to your hand. Cultivate searches for 2 basics and adds 1 to your hand, and the other onto the field tapped. Exploration lets you play an extra land each turn. It's a bit pricey though, as a warning. Explore lets you draw a card and then play an extra land this turn. Growth Spiral draws you 1, and then you can play a land for free. Conley Heart Expedition gets a quest counter on landfall, and you can remove 3 quest counters and sack it to search for up to 2 basic lands and put them onto the field tapped. Kodama's Reach is identical to Cultivate. Rampant Growth searches you up a basic and puts it onto the field tapped. Sakura Tribe Elder can be sacrificed to do the same thing. Search for Tomorrow searches up a land and plays it untapped, and can be suspended for 2 turns for a green. Soul Ring is Soul Ring. 3 visits find you a forest and plays it untapped. Urban Evolution draws you 3 and then lets you play an extra land this turn. For our land base, we have Blighted Woodlands, which can be sacked to find you 2 basics. Command Tower, Carol Atoll, Evolving Wilds, Jungle Basin, Rejuvenating Springs, Reliquary Tower, Simic Growth Chamber, Simic Guildgate, Thornwood Falls, and Woodland Stream, as well as 12 forests and 14 islands. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and let me know what you think in the comments below. Subscribe to get more from us in the future. And as always, have a great day, y'all.